Hi everyone, I'm Laney from Design by Laney. I'm a stationery designer and educator for creative entrepreneurs. So I get a ton of questions all the time on what systems I use to keep all my projects and processes in place. So today I'm going to give you a little review of Honeybook versus Dubsado, both of these cool little systems. So before we get started, if you wouldn't mind giving me a like and a subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss future conversations for creative business owners and tutorials like this. So before I get started, I do want to point out that Honeybook is having a really awesome deal until August 12th, 2020. So if you see this before then, make sure you take a look at that. It's going to be $1 a month for your first 8 months, which is really just insane to pay $8 for 8 months of this value. I'm about to give you just a little preview of all the millions of things that it can do to take your business to the next level. We also have a coupon code if you see this after August 12th for 50% off Honeybook or 20% off Dubsado. That'll all be linked in the description below. So you can take advantage of any of those deals. The $1 deal, you'll have to use my link, which is also in the description of this video. We also have a couple videos on both of these platforms showing you more specifically how to use certain features and a full course on Dubsado that you can access for free on Skillshare. I'll make sure I link that one in the description too. So let's get started. So I have been using Dubsado for a really long time. Honeybook I'm still somewhat new to and have been exploring more for educational purposes. Dubsado is really cool. This is a fake interface that I created just for examples. You can see we've got Pam Beasley over here, Jim and Pam's invitations. So this is what the dashboard kind of looks like. It'll show you what you've got going on, what you need to do, some of your financial goals, open invoices, and how much revenue, as well as a couple little reports. I don't spend too much time on here. I spend most of my time on the projects page where you will have all of your projects. So what we've got in here are some contracts for an affiliate program that I did, but just to give you an idea of kind of what a project looks like, you've got your contract, any sort of tags, your project status, information on the client, invoices and forms are all going to be in the same place, as well as tasks, workflows, notes, appointments, etc. And the projects dashboard is basically just where you can go to see all of that at once. And then we'll go into templates over here, and forms is the place that I personally love the best. You can see over here we've got contracts, sub-agreements, questionnaires, proposals, and lead captures. I go over all of this in my Dubsado course, but the one thing that I love so much about Dubsado is no matter which one you click on, the form building interface is the same. So you're going to have these exact same options over here, columns, text box, image, all these things you can do on any sort of form. The only thing that's different is on contracts and subcontracts, you have an initial and signature area, which you don't have on a questionnaire. However, everything else is exactly the same. So when you get used to the interface, it just feels really simple. I'll just click on a questionnaire here. And you can see we have all of those same exact boxes. Everything is going to look the same. So once you get used to it, it's just really easy and second nature, which is kind of where I've been for the last few years. One thing that I have noticed about Dubsado is that lately it's been a little bit glitchy, and I'm talking 6 to 8 months, and it's nothing major. It's just to the point where sometimes if I add something to an invoice or if I add a form to a job, I end up having to refresh a lot more than I used to have to refresh. And I've talked to them about this, they know about it, they say they're working on it, so it might just be a temporary thing. It's not enough for me to necessarily say Dubsado sucks or anything, it's just kind of a negative that I wanted to point out. So I'll go through the Honeybook interface now. This is where you come in. It's got more of a project-based system and doesn't really go through your reports as much on this main interface. But if you do go to reports, it's got a lot here. I don't have any projects really. I've only booked one project on Honeybook at this point, but it's got all the charts that you're gonna need. And one thing that I love so much that Honeybook does is show you where your leads come from. So all the leads I've had on Honeybook have come from Instagram, and you can just program these in, and it'll also give you like revenue, the value, the conversion rate, etc. So that can tell you how your marketing efforts are paying off, which is really amazing. So their reporting features are pretty good. I don't use either of these systems for my bookkeeping. I use QuickBooks to do all of that, so it's kind of a wash here for me personally. The calendar features are pretty similar for both of these systems, as well as the tasks. So when you go into projects, you'll see everything that you have. I am also planning my wedding right now, and so what you'll see in here, which I think is kind of interesting, is some of these things are my personal projects that other vendors have booked with me on Honeybook. This could be a good thing, and maybe you just need to create a separate account for those projects. Like you can create a client account for free, so maybe I should have just done that. But I think it's a little weird and a little distracting to have these in here when I'm working on planning out my workload with my actual clients. So I think that's a little bit odd, but could be good for some people depending on how you want to do things. And if you work with other vendors on certain projects, you can kind of share their information here. So if you have a wedding planner that's also on Honeybook, you can kind of share some of that information and add them as a user on that account. You've got these same blocks that you can put your projects into, which you also have over in Dubsado on this projects page. You can customize on both systems. However, I will say in Honeybook, you cannot delete some of them, like proposals sent, proposal signed, retainer paid, planning completed, which I think is a little bit interesting. You can add more and you can remove meeting if you want, but you can't remove some of these. So I'm personally someone who doesn't have a lot of pipelines. You can see that over here. I'm pretty much current, design, past. So that's a little bit interesting to me, but I know a lot of people, if you do a lot of projects, I think that Honeybook is really going to be the way to go for you, because you can add a lot of different pipelines. You can upload a bunch of jobs at once, whereas with Dubsado, you have to enter them all at once. So if you do a ton of projects, I think Honeybook is really the one that's going to work for you. So I'm going to show you my favorite part about Honeybook is actually the invoicing. So we'll just go to the templates, which is very similar to the one in Dubsado. I have these proposals, and I'll just go to this 3-piece one, which is super simple. You can create a very similar style proposal in Dubsado, but I like the look of the one in Honeybook a lot better. I don't know exactly what it is, and I like creating the proposals a lot better. It just feels a little bit more user-friendly. You can check if you want text or not, and if you want to edit something, you just click on it, and then you can edit it directly, whereas one thing that I have been a little bit annoyed with in Dubsado is if you add an invoice here and then you want to go change the quantity, you have to actually click this thing, then click edit, then it opens down here. Sometimes I have to scroll, and then I can change the quantity. Whereas here, I can just go right here and change it, so it's a lot faster. So I do love the invoicing system here. Honeybook also has these sections right here, which is proposal, payment, and contract. Honeybook is very much like a one-page parallax system where you can go through everything, but you can click these guys to take you to the top or bottom or whatever. Dubsado is on pages, so you can go proposal, contract, invoice, and pay, and you can do it all in one place, but sometimes I just have to explain that in my emails that you have to click through to see all of that. You don't directly get that from the same page, whereas with Honeybook, you do. I think it doesn't look quite as nice this way, but there are some people who are a little confused by the multiple pages, so I think it's kind of more simplistic to be able to go through it, and having these little buttons up here allows you to do that. My one big beef with Honeybook is that you can do different things on all different types of forms. So you kind of have to learn which form is going to be the right one for you. When you switch over to Honeybook from somewhere else, you can download all of your forms as PDFs from Dubsado, and they'll upload them as new forms for you. I believe Dubsado will do the same thing for you. So that's not necessarily a benefit either way, but it does help if you're switching systems. However, I have all these questionnaires from Dubsado, and the biggest annoyance to me here on this questionnaire is that I cannot add a photo, and I think that's really kind of strange. You can do all of these little things, but you can't add a photo. And so when I asked about this, they said you could use the brochure section, but it is a little tougher to create a brochure. I actually have a video on that I'll link for you in the corner. And once they have created something as a questionnaire, they can't switch it over to a brochure because all the forms are slightly different and have different capabilities. So I think that's a little bit confusing as far as just general interface. However, I will say that Honeybook is really involved in the wedding industry. So if you do have questions, like they have this whole COVID-19 resource section. If you're part of the Rising Tide Society, they are partners or owned by Honeybook or vice versa, something like that. So they're really involved in the wedding industry and can provide some resources that Dubsado doesn't necessarily do. However, Dubsado does have great customer service as well and typically answers a lot quicker. I always end up asking them questions over here, and their setup as well as their entire team is really, really responsive. They have a great Facebook group that you can join that has so many questions answered, as well as Honeybook has one as well. So I do want to mention also one last thing is that Honeybook does have an app and Dubsado does not. They don't really seem to be working on this too much. They are working on making sure their mobile site works pretty well, but it is not an app. So if you do need to do something on the fly a lot, then I think Honeybook is definitely the way to go for you. So I just want to recap a little bit about how I feel about these systems. I'm just going to go back to the home pages. So the last thing that I'll mention is on the forms, I had showed you where the sub-agreement has that signature item. That is something that you don't have on Honeybook except in your contracts, and you can't add photos to contracts like I mentioned. So this proof is how I send client proofs, how I get sign off on them, and this is like a legally binding signature. In Honeybook, what you have to do is use a brochure, and I'll kind of show you what that looks like. This is a brochure I created in one of my previous YouTube videos. I'll link that here in the corner for you. So it's not completely finished, but as far as proofing goes, you basically have to do a little workaround by putting your terms and conditions, having a drop down that they can select that they agree, and then asking them to type their name as a signature. So this isn't quite as legally binding. For this reason, I'm inclined to stick with Dubsado for my stationery design. If I was working on a ton of projects or working on the go where an app would be really helpful, I definitely would switch over to Honeybook. I think there's a lot of things about the interface that are really great. I also have been using Dubsado for 3 years, so I'm just a lot more familiar with it, and everything with Honeybook feels a little bit foreign to me, but I know that would go away in like a month or two if I actually were to switch. So I think for me, Dubsado is just a little bit simpler, a little bit more aesthetically pleasing to me, whereas Honeybook really works well and has a lot of unique features, but doesn't have kind of that ease of use, and you have to learn how to really get the best use out of Honeybook. So they're both really amazing systems. The big deciding factor right now is that Honeybook is $1 for 8 months, so you might as well try it out. Dubsado also has a 3 project free trial, which I really love because you can use it as long as you want before you're paying. So I'll have the discount code to get that $1 a month for Honeybook in the description, as well as below that I'll provide both discount codes that I usually use for Honeybook and Dubsado, so you can take advantage of those even after August 12th. So let me know what questions you have. I'd be happy to do some more videos or answer some comments about this, and make sure you subscribe to our channel for more conversations and tips for creative business owners. Thanks everyone.